So, like I said before, the idea of the peace treaty was it would make the armistice permanent. So the armistice wasn't an agreement to end the war. It was a ceasefire. It was an agreement. We'll stop fighting for now while we decide what to do, how we're going to properly end this war. Now, like I said, there was no negotiation. Germany had two choices: either you sign this piece of paper, accept what we've decided, or we're going back to fighting. Now, so 28th of June 1919, the delegates, the representatives met in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, and Germany was forced to sign the peace treaty because they were in no position to continue fighting the war. The Kaiser had abdicated. They'd had a mutiny at Kiel where basically Navy men refused to fight. This has spread to the whole army. No one wanted to go back to war at this point. So what were these terms? So firstly, Article 231, this gives you an idea about how big it was. In fact, at 231 plus things agreed, stated that Germany was to blame for causing the war. So they had signed a piece of paper that said the whole war, everything that happened was all their fault. They were guilty. The Allies claimed reparations for damage. Reparations is something called compensation. It basically meant that Germany had to pay them money for the cost of the war. So they had to pay them billions of pounds. In 1921, it was decided that the amount Germany had to pay was £6,600 million. And the idea was they would pay this back in a series of payments right up until I think about the 1990s was when they imagined this stopping. So a huge amount basically to pay for the destruction that had been caused in France, the people, the men on that side of the Allies who had died, to pay for their families. It was a huge amount. They also took away 10% of Germany's industry and 15% of its agricultural, its farming land. Germany lost much of its land and it lost all of its colonies. The army and navy were to be reduced significantly. They weren't allowed to have an air force and they weren't allowed to have submarines. Submarines, or U-boats was what they called them, had been used to target British and American merchant ships, so not army ships, but ships carrying supplies of food into Britain. So they were no longer allowed to have any U-boats that they could use to attack civilians or military ships from Britain and the USA. So if we look here, we can see here in this section here is the Rhineland. So it's where Germany borders France. And the idea was that the Treaty of Versailles said Germany could not have any soldiers in here. Now the idea of this was that if the war ever started again, it would mean that German soldiers weren't on the border with France. It also meant that French soldiers could quickly occupy this area of land, and any fighting in another war wouldn't take place on French soil, it would take place in German soil in the Rhineland because it was demilitarized. They weren't allowed to have any soldiers in this area. On the other side, we can see the Polish corridor. So this land was taken from Germany and it was used to form the new state of Poland. And in particular, even though this piece of land, Poland was also formed as part of this treaty. So Poland before this did not exist. But giving them this piece of land traditionally hadn't been inhabited by people who spoke Polish. So in that sense, it didn't make sense to make this part of Poland. But the reason for giving it to Poland was it allowed Poland to have a coastline, allowed them to have access to the sea. And within this Polish corridor, this area next to the sea, Danzig, which was a German-speaking city, where the people did not really want to be part of Poland, the city was given to Poland in 1919. Down here we can see Austria, Germany. There was a clause saying Germany and Austria weren't allowed to unite as one country. Now, when Germany first became Germany back in the 1800s, Germany had originally been lots of little states. And in the 1800s, they combined to make one big state. And there'd been a big debate about, is Germany going to be Großdeutschland, which would include what we can see here is Germany, plus Austria, because Austria spoke the same language, or was it going to be Kleine Deutschland, which meant it would be small Germany without Austria. And in the end, they'd agreed that Germany and Austria would be separate. But there'd always been this idea that they were allies, they had a lot in common because they spoke the same language. And there'd always been talks about them joining together into one sort of superpower. But this treaty said they were not allowed to do that. This area here, the Sudetenland, which we can see is near Prague, was an area of Czechoslovakia where most of the people lived that were German speakers. But this land was given to form the new state of Czechoslovakia, and this area had lots of factories and lots of, in particular, weapons factories. And this was handed over to Czechoslovakia, and it was an incredibly wealthy piece of land. Okay. In addition, we had some other things. This area here, Alsace-Lorraine, which Germany had won off France in the 1870s in the war, was given back to France. There was this area of Malmedy. They had a plebiscite. Now, a plebiscite is where the people have a vote, sometimes called a referendum, and they're given a choice, yes or no. In this case, do you want to join Belgium? Yes or no? And they voted yes and joined Belgium. Schleswig, this area up here, was also allowed a plebiscite. So they got a choice. Do you want to stay in Germany, or do you want to join Denmark? And what happened was the south voted to remain German, the north voted to join Denmark. So northern Schleswig was handed over to Denmark. Seen already, Danzig was under the control of the League of Nations. We don't need to know about that yet, but it was given over to Poland. Memel, which was part of Germany, was given to the new country of Lithuania. Upper Silesia was given a vote. Half voted to stay German, half voted to join Poland. So they became part of Poland. Like I said, German speakers in the new state of Czechoslovakia weren't given a choice of joining Germany. So the Sudetenland, with all the rich industry, was made part of Czechoslovakia. And it said the combined effect of this treaty was that Germany lost 13% of its land, 6 million people, 16% of its coal production, particularly in this area, this sort of Polish corridor, 15% of its agricultural production, so 15% of the farms and the crops were lost to Germany, and 48% of its iron production. Reparations was £6.6 million. Now, losing its iron production was also a big problem because what that meant was the iron is needed to make weapons, so it made it far more difficult for them to fight a war. Now, what you're going to do on next, I'm going to show you a short video where I show you how this is laid out, but you've got a table in your book and you need to decide, was each of the terms of the treaty listed intended to punish Germany and get revenge? Was it to weaken Germany so it can never be a threat again? Or was it to reward or compensate the Allies? And you need to explain why you think that was the point of this thing. Okay, a term may fit into more than one category. If you're really not sure, you can select more than one, but I'll show you how this works in the next video.